Hello, this is Jayanto Chatterjee from IIT Kanpur, and as you would recall, we are discussing about strategy in the context of managing services in today's world. To summarize what we discussed in the previous session, a strategic plan is a sort of a map. The map metaphor is very important because, as we were discussing, the map metaphor tells us that we are going from point A to point B, and we have discussed that this is changing, therefore this route needs to change. So, the map, just like in a map we see different points connected through different meandering ways. So, it is not exactly meandering that we are talking about, but we are talking about a flexible approach as situations evolve. And so, to know where the organization is headed, where it is today and where it is going. So, that is what we discussed about what is and what could be by analyzing the what ifs. That is in a nutshell what strategic analysis, strategic thinking is all about. And in strategic plan we say that ultimately this is the managerial action charter to achieve desired outcome. And we discussed in the previous session that this desired outcomes in terms of priority, first is to enhance the delight factors, for current customers, and co-opt current customers to acquire new customers. So, your strategy plan must clearly provide for those processes, these highlighted processes. And we talked about mission statement, and we also said that there has to be performance objectives, financial numbers, but that must be compensated with qualitative strategic plans for enhancing the delight of the current customers and co-opting them for future customers. Now, this is again can be looked at from another different way, that obviously a strategy is more of doing rather than planning. In fact, a poor plan with strong execution, concerted effort at every level of the organization will have a higher probability of success compared to a brilliant plan, brilliant thinking, but poor execution. So, execution is very important, and in execution the most important thing is to have everybody on the organization on the same page. So, which means that right from the formulation stage, not only your employees but even your customers should be part of that formulation. And more importantly, this is done by many organizations, but what organizations often forget to do, that as situations evolve, as they take corrective calibrating actions, they often forget to keep the customers or the employees involved. So, in the dynamics of the year as it rolls out, sometimes people are desynchronized. So, the synchronization of all departments and key customers with respect to the strategy evolution is very important. Now, to achieve this successfully, we have to also know that these two factors are very important. We discussed this in the context of the Arvind Eye Care, that how they actually recruit people who are not only competent, but also are inspired by the mission, by the superordinate goal of the organization, which is to serve people at the bottom of the economic pyramid at the lowest possible cost. Such lofty goals should be shared, and you should recruit people who are of that type, who respond to such goals. That can be done by understanding the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and identifying such people who are driven by the higher level of needs. And your incentive structure, your compensation structure, the entire human resource management structure also must be geared up so that they are in tune with your evolving strategy. And this comes later, this compensation, incentives, rewards. Punishment really does not have much of a position. There will be attrition, but it is very important that in a service business that usual attrition has to be handled in such a way that it does not disturb the core of the organization. People may leave for higher pursuits or different careers, but just like a river in a normal flow will neither have flood nor will have drought. That normal flow maintenance is very important. That means there has to be always a core set of employees in tune with customers, in tune with the goals, and that can be often ensured by paying good attention to your organizational culture, which should be customer oriented, which should be market oriented. And these are concepts that what does it mean, customer centricity, customer orientation, what does it mean to make your organization market oriented, are all part of the strategic orientation. We have discussed many of these issues, that what does it mean to be customer oriented in the earlier sessions, what does it mean to be market oriented in the earlier session, about when we have discussed about segmentation, targeting, positioning. But we will come back to these issues about how to remain constantly market oriented, customer oriented, how to remain constantly focused on enhancing the customer delight, current customers' delight, co-opting them, and so on. But before I progress to the next section, I must highlight one particular point to remember in the strategic context, that what gives us success today may not be the tool for success tomorrow. If you get used to a hammer, then you will start choosing all problems as nails, which may not be at all the appropriate approach, or you might neglect some other very important problems because you have the hammer in your hand and you are looking for nails, which means that you must remain flexible. You must have a strategic toolbox. You must know when to use what, with the pole star in front of you, which is constantly enhancing the delight of the current customer, constantly co-opting the current customer as you go on expanding your market footprint. So every time there is a problem, so that you don't fall into this hammer and nail paradigm or trap, check with the customer, check with your employees, check with your front line, the people always in contact with the customers. So the service business, the front line and the customer interface, all the touch points are very important even at a strategic level. So in a manufacturing organization for goods or in goods thinking, you can think about the top floor and the shop floor differently, separately, top floor and the shop floor. But in service business, you must see it as a continuous flow from the front line to the back and forward, as a loop, as a closed loop operation. That is what systems thinking is all about, and that should be the core of your service strategy thinking. Of course, as the strategy rolls out, you have to constantly evaluate performances, monitor the situation. So again, if you think in terms of our standard closed loop control system approach, that means you have an input, and here you may actually have a set calibration. So this is your kind of your strategy. There are various kinds of inputs. You have the organizational process which is leading to the output to the customers. This is the customer facing side. This is your output. So in a service business, this part where the service is generated and delivered, and you would recall that in service often they are inseparable. This part, the touch point and the strategy setting, the input, they all must remain connected. Okay? So the input signal therefore continuously must be recalibrated with real time feedback from your front line and from your customers. So this monitoring of the situation must be real time, not periodic. And these days, with good use of information and communication technology, all your systems of like ERP etc. will allow you to get a daily, almost hourly, almost instant feedback of changing situation with respect to inventory, with respect to customer feedback, with respect to problems in the marketplace, with respect to complaints and so on. So this ability to, I would not say modify, but I would say a flexible approach to strategy implementation is very important. And flexible does not mean that you change every other day. Flexible means that keeping the pole star of delighting your current customers in front of you, always test the evolving situation with respect to that superordinate goal and see what needs to be done to do course correction. When we discuss about certain specific examples, these sort of philosophical or conceptual processes will become clearer. Now, one of the things we do, and it is a very simple approach but quite powerful, is what we do, we call a situation analysis. So we analyze the external environment, we analyze things like what is happening in with the competitors, what sort of technologies are developing, whether this industry is remaining attractive or alternate industry is developing. So whether there is a strong emerging force like the personal media or social media, which is constantly challenging the commercial media. So this dichotomy between or the tussle between social media, personal media and the commercial media may constantly changing direction, giving possibilities creating possibilities, and those are all the different economic factors that is part of your situation analysis. So with that you can develop this, this is on top as it is written, it is called SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. Out of this we can develop what is known as the TOWS matrix, TOWS, the TOWS matrix. That means you put these external factors like threats and opportunities on this side and weaknesses and strength on this side. And this 2 by 2 matrix is an excellent tool, simple but very useful tool to understand that what are the new emerging opportunities which are sort of not accessible to you currently or not being availed by you well currently because of your weaknesses, and what opportunities you can do very well because you are strong in those. And similarly, what are the threats that are further complicated by your weaknesses, and what are the threats that you can respond to well by using your strength. So obviously this is a position that must be continuously strengthened, continuously retained, enhanced, embellished, and so on. And this is where we have to use strengths to supplement our weaknesses. So when you engage in the assignment that we discussed in the last session of last week, when we were looking at this dabbawalas, and I requested you to fill up those 2 pages about where the dabbawalas can go 5 years from now, 3 years from now, and what do they need to do to respond to the emerging situations like social media, smartphone based food ordering system. What will they do if people like Food Panda come into the foray of come into the domain of the dabbawalas and they co-opt that business model, that they can deliver stuff from your home and mix it with stuff that can come from one of the vendors. This intermixing of networks have disrupted many other businesses. Can it happen in this food delivery business of the famous Bombay dabbawalas? And what can they do? Now that those 2 pages that I requested you to fill up as your assignment, you can now do better by using this particular 2 by 2 matrix, the TOWS matrix. This process can be applied to most strategic situations and can also give us excellent indicators for developing a good tactical plan. So with this I will end today's session, and we can continue with another important concept which will help you to complement your work with the TOWS matrix. Thank you.